thing we have to fear is
In war,
fear itself.
there is no substitute for victory.
Let us never negotiate out of fear.
We stand undivided, forever united, fighting hand in hand for the liberty we've earned, for glory and honor, for our sons and daughters, ever mindful of the lessons we've learned. Let the torch of freedom burn.
Welcome to the intersection of faith and politics. This is Wallbuilders Live with David Barton and Rick Green. Appreciate you joining us today. We also encourage you to join us online at wallbuilderslive.com and wallbuilders.com. David, got a great guest coming up today and going to talk about a topic that, well, it's sort of getting under folks' skin out there. This is really raising the ire of a lot of Americans.
But it's becoming a bigger problem than we ever imagined. It's Sharia law.
Yeah.
And just by way of beginning, how do you know what Sharia law means?
Man, I don't even know how to describe this. Kara was actually asking me this the other day. She was saying, how do they take the idea of Islamic law and get it into our American law? And I said, well, it's happening in various places around the country, but I can't even explain exactly how they do it.
Well, here's what the term means. Sharia means the path to a watering hole or the path to water. Now, think about that region of the world where Islam is dominated, very arid region of the world. So they're saying this is your way to life. This is your way to live. If you do this, this is how you have life.
Okay.
So this is, and that really is what it is a form of life. It is the way that they want to see life lived. It's comprised of two things. Number one is the Islamic system of law, where they have a legal code. And number two is the Islamic way of life. So Sharia law is both Islamic law and Islamic customs, and it's made from both of those things. So you go to the Quran, if it's in the Quran, it's there. And the other thing is if you can look at Muhammad's life and see it in Muhammad's life, then that's the other thing that you want. So Sharia law is made up, I don't know how we would explain it as a Christian because we don't have anything quite like that. But it is having the Quran as your law book and then having the life of Muhammad as the example of how you do all this stuff. So that's the totality of life. Now, Sharia law, the way this works is, for example, we've already had here in Texas honor killings.
Yeah, that was the one thing I brought up to Kara. I said, my understanding is in their way of life and under Sharia law, an honor killing is okay.
It is, and see, in the places in Europe where and Europe's facing a real problem with Sharia law. They're now starting to have crackbacks on it, but there are 58 courts in England that accept Sharia law. So I killed my kids because they converted to Christianity. Okay, you're off the hook because that's
so they literally say, regardless of what our legislature passed, we're going to defer to your religion as the law.
That's right.
You get a pass.
Yeah, and this is where truth is relative. Everybody gets to live by their own standard. And so we're going to say if you're going to look at the life of Muhammad and say he's polygamous and he wants a bunch of wives, then it's okay to do that here in the United States because under Sharia law, that's what you believe and that's good for you. Not good for us, but it's good for you. So and that's the problem they're having across Europe is they're losing all of their culture. Western culture is going out the door. So you have here in Texas these honor killings. You had the one in Florida where the girl converted to Christianity from Ohio, fled to Florida trying to save her life, and the courts had to get involved in that. So
I remember that.
You have all that. But we also have a family court judge in New Jersey who had an abuse case come before him. A husband abusing the wife, and he said, "Oh, that's okay. You're Islamic, and under Sharia law, you're supposed to abuse your wife."
Wow.
So you've already had a judge in New Jersey let a guy off the hook.
So not applying the law that's on the book.
Not applying the laws on the books,
but instead saying you get a pass.
I know I took an oath to uphold the Constitution, but I didn't really mean that. I meant your thing. And so we've already seen it coming in. This past couple of weeks made a lot of news as. Our justices in the Supreme Court, some of them have said, well, we think Sharia law is a good thing for America. So we've now got Supreme Court judges. See, the problem with Sharia law is it is absolute and total conflict.
Somehow I'm betting that wasn't Scalia or Thomas.
You can keep betting it wasn't two more of them, too. You want to name the other two?
Wasn't Roberts or Alito.
Thank you very much. If you say Elena Kagan, I'll say you're right.
Well, ding, 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 ding.
And we've got another who's been saying it's not that bad a deal. So we've got this new movement that it doesn't matter what the Constitution says, doesn't matter what your state laws say, it doesn't. And so the problem is Sharia law is total conflict with the constitutional Republican form of government, where the people make their laws and
they're on the books and you follow the law. It's the rule of law.
but not under Sharia law. So that's part of the problem we have. So honor killings. The other thing that really ticked me off recently is under both the Quran and under Muhammad's example, you are not allowed to draw any kind of depiction of Muhammad, good, bad, or indifferent.
Oh, this is like the cartoons a couple of years ago that they ended up having riots and
exactly. Yeah. Because if you draw a cartoon of Muhammad, Islam, that's blasphemous, and you've got to be killed.
Wow.
Well, bless his little heart, one of our little American citizens in Seattle made the mistake of drawing an Islamic cartoon. And so he's got death threats all over his life. And our good old FBI, rather than saying, we'll defend you, they said, you need to change your name, you need to go underground, you need to find a different city in which to live, you just need to go hide. Wow. Hey, wait a minute, how about upholding the Constitution and our laws? So
protecting his freedom of speech to do so. And
we're capitulating to this whole notion of Sharia law in a really bad way. And I love the fact that Oklahoma, in this ballot cycle, has on their books a ballot that says, we in Oklahoma, we will not recognize Sharia law.
Yeah, preemptive strike then.
It's a preemptive strike.
Yeah.
And boy, I hope everybody hearing this will go to their state legislators and say, hey, you need to do this too.
That's a great idea,
You take the
man.
Oklahoma thing, let's get this thing cut off at the bud right now. Let's chop this off at the knees before it gets legs.
Yeah.
Let's not let this thing walk anywhere in the United States.
That's a great idea.
So Congressman Hoekstra, a good friend, we've had him on several times. He's a great guy. He ran for governor of Michigan. I would love to see him win, but he came in second in that primary, and that unfortunately is a state where the majority does not win. It's a plurality. So I think he probably would have won in a runoff, but he just came in second. Nonetheless, great guy. He's on the Select Intelligence Committee. He's the guy who's got all the top secret stuff in Congress.
I love watching him on talk shows and stuff. He's so good.
Once his stuff gets declassified and he can tell us the stuff he knows that he can't tell us right now, we're going to have a whole different view of the war on terror. I guarantee you.
Yeah,
but Pete's a good guy, and he's going to talk to us about a new report that's out on this very issue.
All right, Congressman Pete Hoekstra. We'll be back with him in a moment on Wallbuilders Live.
This is David Barton with another moment from America's history. As this election draws closer, we hear increasing numbers of partisan candidate commercials. Unfortunately, many votes will be cast completely along party lines. While parties are not necessarily harmful, any loyalty which places a party above principle is wrong. In fact, signer of the Declaration Benjamin Rush confirmed this same truth nearly 2 centuries ago. Benjamin Rush had served under 3 different presidents, each of whom was from a different political party. When once asked of his own party affiliation, he wisely replied, I've been alternately called an aristocrat and a Democrat. I am neither. I am a Christocrat. In this upcoming election, Christians, no matter their party affiliation, need to remember above all to vote like a Christocrat. At each position, remember to vote for the most godly candidate.
For more information on God's hand in American history, contact Wallbuilders at 1-800-8-REBUILD.
Let the torch of freedom burn.
Welcome back to Wallbuilders Live. Our guest today is Congressman Pete Hoekstra of Michigan. Congressman, thank you so much for joining us today.
Hey, it's always good to be with you. Thank you.
Well, we love having you. Appreciate you coming on, and appreciate the good work that you continue to do. Noticed a very interesting article on Sharia law and the report from the Center for Security Policy, and you're the top Republican on the House Intelligence Committee. If anybody can speak to this, you can. Tell us a little bit more about the danger we face, and I guess most importantly, our attitude towards it, and whether or not as a nation we really understand what we're up against.
Well, that's really why this report is so important. You know, even in the Bush administration and now the Obama administration has continued this lack of definition of the threat that we face in America. Just saying, well, it has nothing to do with religion, and it's just a group of bad actors, who are out to, attack America and, to destroy America, but they never give it much definition. And if you don't understand the threat, you can't contain it, confront it, or defeat it. And so there's a group of individuals that came together under the auspices of the Center for Security Policy, and they developed a report they called the Team B analysis. And it said, hey, we think that there's an alternative viewpoint that ought to be considered and brought forward. And they identified it as individuals who, yes, they are Muslims, and the doctrine that they believe is a supremacist doctrine. They believe that Islam is superior to all other forms of religion, all other beliefs, and that it's their role to take this superior position of Islam and create a caliphate and bring this forward into the whole world. And so they want this supremacist, they believe in this supremacist philosophy under Sharia law, which is their overall governing document. It goes well beyond religious tenets. It's a whole governing philosophy. They basically say, we want the world to live under this law. It's in total conflict and with representative government, the way of life that we have here in America, and that's the kind of threat that we face. It's a great report putting it all in context.
So we don't did we maybe even name the war wrong? I think it was Newt Gingrich who said a couple of weeks ago on our program we shouldn't have called it the war on terror. We should have called it the war on radical Islam. Do we need to change our terminology?
I think so. I mean, what's the war on terror? There's all kinds of different terrorist groups that are out there, and terror is a tactic. The guy that was in Chicago in the last couple of days who was going to leave the bomb outside of Wrigley Field, that's a terrorist act. We have no indications, at least at this point, that he's identified or affiliated with radical jihadists. I've been saying that for years. I agree with Newt Gingrich. Calling this the war against terror is exactly the wrong thing to do, again, because you don't identify the enemy. You have to identify it, and that's why I think this report is so important. It actually does now put into context the different elements with Islam, and I think clearly articulates this supremacist philosophy that certain parts of Islam subscribe to, and that are really very, very dangerous to the rest of the world.
It seems like by not being willing to name the religion itself, our political correctness gets in the way of being able to deal appropriately with the threat we're facing. The mosque at Ground Zero is a great example of that, but it's not just that. It sounds like this has been systemic throughout the entire war.
It has been, and I couldn't say it any better than what you just said it. It is political correctness and being an unwillingness to identify this threat. And it's also, the other flip side of that is the political correctness that leads us to not identify the Christian values and the Christian beliefs on which this government is focused and based on, or should be focused on, and is based on.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, we ignore our own history. We mislabel the enemy that we have, and it's almost like we want to lose whenever you look at that. And it's I guess the bright spot here, Congressman, is that I am really surprised at how well the American people have awakened to this. They're not just lulled to sleep. I saw a poll the Independent Women's Forum did of independents, and among independents, 89% are saying that they're still concerned about this, that national defense is a major issue, that the war against radical Islamic terrorism is what's on their mind. I mean, I thought we'd been lulled to sleep, but it seems like you look at the response to the mosque at Ground Zero, you look at this polling data, I'm thinking the administration and the Democrats that haven't been willing to call this what it is and face what it is, and frankly Republicans too, I think the American people are about to say, hey, we need to shift our focus here.
I think that's exactly right. I spoke to a group on Saturday night, a gathering in Chicago called Right Nation. And it was all about, people talking about economic issues and those types of things. And I kind of just, during my opportunity to talk to the crowd, just kind of, shifted the attention of the folks and saying, we still face a threat from radical jihadists. And I got a very, very warm response and saying, we've just done a lot of things that, number one, are policies that make us less secure. And then I did go through, what happened at Fort Hood, what happened on Christmas Day, what almost happened at Times Square, and identified that in almost each of those cases, this administration and the political pundits, they were so afraid to identify these things as terrorist acts affiliated with radical Islamists. And you come back to the line. If you don't identify it properly, you will never be able to defeat it.